the proud nation of Scotland, land of misty highlands, rugged islands, serene lochs, and a history carved in fire and stone. Today, it is part of the United Kingdom, yet for centuries, it stood as an independent kingdom, forged through relentless struggle, fierce battles, and the unwavering spirit of its people. But how did this land, once a patchwork of Celtic tribes, rise to become one of the most recognizable and culturally proud nations on the planet? From ancient megaliths and Roman legions, to Viking invasions, dynastic struggles, and the legendary wars of independence, Scotland's story is one of resilience, identity, and an enduring quest for freedom. Join us as we journey through the history of Scotland, a tale that spans over 10,000 years and continues to shape the nation even today. Long before Scotland became a kingdom, its lands were inhabited by humans for over 10,000 years. These early inhabitants left behind no written records, yet the traces of their lives, tools, monuments, and remnants of daily existence offer us glimpses into their world. In the beginning, these people were nomadic hunter-gatherers, following the rhythm of the seasons. They foraged for wild plants, hunted deer, and fished in rivers and along the coasts. Their lives were intimately tied to the land, understanding its patterns, its dangers, and its abundance. Every hill, river, and coastline was both a source of sustenance and a guide for survival. As time passed, these early communities began to settle, embracing the dawn of agriculture around 4000 BCE. They cultivated crops, domesticated animals, and built permanent homes, transforming the landscape and the way they lived. Farming allowed them to establish stable communities, laying the groundwork for social structures, trade, and cultural development. Alongside this transition came a remarkable and enduring legacy: the construction of megalithic monuments. Across the islands and mainland, communities erected standing stones, stone circles, and ceremonial sites. The Callanish stones on the Isle of Lewis, with their towering, enigmatic forms, and the intricate Neolithic monuments of Orkney, stand as testaments to the spiritual and ritual life of ancient Scotland. These structures likely marked astronomical events, guided seasonal celebrations, and connected the people to forces beyond the visible world. Though small in number and scattered across a vast, often harsh landscape, these early inhabitants left an indelible mark. Their ingenuity, resilience, and deep connection to the land set the stage for the emergence of complex societies. From these remote and rugged landscapes, the seeds of Scottish culture, its reverence for the natural world, its craftsmanship, and its community spirit, were first sown. Centuries later, this foundation would grow into a nation renowned for its enduring spirit and rich cultural heritage. Scotland first entered the written record not through its own people, but through the eyes of outsiders. Around 325 BCE, the Greek geographer Pytheas of Massalia may have circumnavigated Britain, referring to the northernmost lands as Orcus, a name that would echo in the islands for centuries to come. By 43 CE, the Romans had crossed from the continent, conquering southern Britain and gradually pushing northward. They met fierce resistance from the native tribes, particularly the Caledonians, led by their chieftain, Calgacus. The decisive Battle of Mons Graupius in 84 CE saw the Romans triumph, but victory was far from complete. Rome sought to consolidate its control, constructing forts and watchtowers across the southern and eastern regions. Yet, the harsh terrain, relentless tribal resistance, and the enormous cost of maintaining troops in such a rugged land forced the Romans to retreat, establishing Hadrian's Wall as their permanent northern frontier. A brief advance northward, the Antonine Wall, would later be abandoned, marking the limits of Roman ambition in Scotland. Despite their limited occupation, the Romans left an enduring legacy: roads, fortifications, and a map of a land that would continue to resist outside domination. Beyond the walls, the tribes of northern Scotland, the ancestors of the Picts, continued to live freely, preserving their culture and setting the stage for the complex kingdoms that would follow. By the early 5th century, the Romans had withdrawn from Britain, leaving behind a patchwork of tribes and a land open to new powers. In Scotland, several Celtic groups began to carve out their own kingdoms, each with distinct identities and territories. In the northeast, the Picts, a confederation of tribes whose origins remain partly mysterious, formed the Kingdom of Fortriu. To the west, Gaelic-speaking settlers from Ireland, known as the Scotti, established the Kingdom of Dalriada, which extended into parts of modern Northern Ireland. In the southwest, the Brythonic-speaking people of Strathclyde made their mark, while in the southeast, the Anglo-Saxons, speaking Old English, founded Bernicia, later known as Northumbria. During this period, Scotland was not only politically fragmented, but also undergoing a profound spiritual transformation. In 563 CE, the Irish monk Saint Columba crossed the sea to establish the monastery on the remote island of Iona. This monastic community became the spiritual heart of the region, guiding the gradual conversion of the Picts, Scotti, and Anglo-Saxons from their ancestral pagan beliefs to Christianity. Despite sharing a new faith, these kingdoms retained their political independence, often engaging in rivalry and warfare. Yet, it was within this mosaic of tribes, faiths, and kingdoms that the seeds of a united Scottish identity began to take root. A story of resilience, adaptation, and cultural synthesis that would echo through the centuries. The relative calm of early medieval Scotland was abruptly shattered in 793 CE, when Viking longships darkened the horizon. These seafaring warriors struck swiftly and mercilessly, targeting remote monasteries such as the sacred island of Iona and Lindisfarne. Their raids were brutal, leaving destruction in their wake and sending shockwaves through the scattered communities of Scotland. Yet these early attacks were merely the beginning of a prolonged Norse presence that would leave a lasting imprint on the land and its people. Over the following decades, Vikings transitioned from raiders to settlers, establishing permanent colonies in Orkney, Shetland, and the Western Isles. The western seaboard evolved into a Norse Gaelic kingdom, a unique fusion of Scandinavian and Celtic traditions. Language, art, law, and customs intertwined, creating a distinct cultural identity that would endure for generations. The Viking influence also reshaped political structures, compelling smaller kingdoms to either consolidate or risk being overrun. Amid this turbulence, a decisive turning point emerged. In the 840s, Kenneth MacAlpin, the king of Dalriada, united his Gaelic realm with the Pictish kingdom of Fortriu. This remarkable merger gave birth to the kingdom of Alba, laying the groundwork for what would eventually become the nation of Scotland. Alba was more than a political union. It symbolized the resilience, adaptability, and ambition of a people determined to assert control over their destiny. Over the next century, Alba steadily expanded its influence, incorporating neighboring territories and defending its lands against both Viking incursions and internal rivals. The kingdom was forged through conflict and diplomacy, shaped by strategic alliances and strengthened by the enduring will of its leaders and people. The rise of Alba marked the dawn of a new chapter in Scottish history, a kingdom born from struggle, ingenuity, and unity. It was a foundation upon which centuries of medieval state-building, warfare, and cultural development would unfold, setting Scotland on a path toward becoming the proud and distinct nation we recognize today. By the end of the 11th century, the Kingdom of Alba had grown into the medieval Kingdom of Scotland. It absorbed Strathclyde and parts of Northumbria, establishing borders with the emerging Kingdom of England to the south. The 11th century also witnessed the rise of the Dunkeld dynasty, which would rule Scotland for nearly 2 centuries, guiding the kingdom through both internal challenges and external pressures. Foreign influence began to leave its mark. Following William the Conqueror's consolidation of England in 1066, Norman knights entered Scottish service, introducing feudal practices that intertwined Scotland's politics with its southern neighbor. Yet Scotland was not solely shaped by England. The Western Isles remained under Norse control, officially part of Norway until the 13th century, when battles and diplomacy, culminating in the Treaty of Perth in 1266, brought them under Scottish sovereignty. Despite territorial consolidation, succession crises would repeatedly destabilize the kingdom. The untimely death of Alexander III in 1286 left no clear heir, prompting Scottish nobles to seek the mediation of England's Edward I. Exploiting this opportunity, Edward asserted feudal authority over Scotland, setting the stage for conflict. This period also gave rise to Scotland's most legendary figures. In response to English interference, Scottish nobles and commoners rallied behind heroes like William Wallace, whose victory at the Battle of Stirling Bridge in 1297 became a symbol of resistance. Later, Robert the Bruce secured independence at the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, solidifying Scotland's sovereignty and leaving a legacy of courage, determination, and national identity that would endure for centuries. In 1371, Scotland embarked on a transformative chapter in its history with the establishment of the Stewart dynasty. This royal family would dominate Scottish and eventually British affairs for over 3 centuries, guiding the nation through times of both stability and turmoil. Under the Stuarts, Scotland consolidated its fragmented territories, secured strategic regions, and expanded its influence abroad. A landmark achievement came through royal marriage, the acquisition of the Orkney and Shetland Islands, expanding the kingdom's reach and reinforcing its northern borders. Edinburgh, once a modest settlement, rose in prominence under the Stuarts, becoming the political and cultural heart of Scotland. The city replaced Scone, the historic coronation site, as the symbolic center of Scottish monarchy, while castles, churches, and universities flourished, establishing the infrastructure for education, governance, and culture that would endure for centuries. Yet, the 15th and 16th centuries were not solely defined by political growth. They were also a period of profound religious upheaval. Scottish monasteries and universities became beacons of learning, preserving knowledge and cultivating intellectual advancement. But across Europe, the Protestant Reformation was sweeping through, challenging the authority of the Catholic Church and reshaping the spiritual landscape. Scotland could not remain untouched by these forces. Queen Mary, a devout Catholic, ascended the throne into a kingdom increasingly drawn toward Protestantism. Her reign was riddled with political intrigue, rebellion, and religious tension. Despite her efforts to maintain authority, she was forced to abdicate in 1567 in favor of her infant son, James VI. The young king inherited a nation on the edge of civil unrest, its nobility divided and its people grappling with the implications of religious and political change. As James VI matured, he would make a historic move that would forever alter the course of Scottish and British history. In 1603, following the death of Queen Elizabeth I, he inherited the English crown, becoming James I of England. This personal union brought Scotland and England under a single monarch for the first time. Yet the arrangement was complex. Scotland retained its own parliament, legal system, and traditions, creating a delicate balance of autonomy and connection. The Stewart dynasty had not only shaped Scotland's political landscape, but had also laid the groundwork for centuries of negotiation, compromise, and occasional conflict with its southern neighbor, a dynamic that would continue to define the nation for generations to come. The 17th century plunged Scotland into a turbulent era of civil wars, religious conflict, and political upheaval. Under Charles I, attempts to impose an English-style prayer book sparked widespread unrest among Presbyterian Covenanters. Highland clans, however, remained loyal to the monarchy, leading to a complex and bloody series of conflicts across Scotland, England, and Ireland, collectively known as the Wars of the Three Kingdoms. Following the execution of Charles I in 1649, Scotland proclaimed his son, Charles II, as king, defying the English Parliament and drawing the nation into further conflict. Oliver Cromwell's forces invaded, culminating in the decisive defeat at Dunbar in 1650 and the incorporation of Scotland into the Commonwealth. Yet, with Cromwell's death and the restoration of Charles II in 1660, Scotland regained its monarchy and entered a period of relative stability. Religious tensions resurfaced under James II and VII, a Catholic monarch whose policies and the birth of a Catholic heir triggered fears of a dynastic shift. This unrest led to the Glorious Revolution, with William of Orange and Mary assuming joint rule. Yet in Scotland, loyalty to the ousted James persisted, sparking the Jacobite movement, a series of uprisings over the next decades aimed at restoring the Stewart line. The Jacobite rebellions reached their zenith in 1745, led by Charles Edward Stewart, Bonnie Prince Charlie. Initial successes, including the capture of Edinburgh, inspired hope, but the campaign ultimately ended in disaster at the Battle of Culloden in 1746. This defeat crushed the Jacobite cause, led to the dismantling of the Highland clan system, and forever altered the social and political fabric of the Scottish Highlands. Despite these upheavals, Scotland emerged intellectually and culturally resilient, setting the stage for the Enlightenment and the rapid transformations that would define the 18th and 19th centuries. The latter half of the 18th century ushered in a remarkable era of intellectual, cultural, and economic transformation for Scotland. Emerging from centuries of warfare, dynastic struggles, and Jacobite uprisings, the nation entered a period of unprecedented creativity and innovation, a golden age now celebrated as the Scottish Enlightenment. During this time, Scotland became a beacon of learning and philosophy. Visionaries like Adam Smith revolutionized economic thought, with his groundbreaking work, The Wealth of Nations, laying the foundations of modern economics and free market theory. At the same time, the poet Robert Burns captured the spirit of Scotland in verse, celebrating its landscapes, its people, and its enduring traditions. Universities in St. Andrews, Glasgow, and Aberdeen thrived, attracting scholars and students eager to explore new ideas. The intellectual ferment of this period spread far beyond Scotland's borders, influencing Europe and the wider world. Yet Scotland's transformation was not confined to ideas and art. The nation was also being reshaped by the forces of industrialization. Cities like Glasgow, Edinburgh, and Dundee expanded rapidly as coal mining, steel production, and shipbuilding created new opportunities and wealth. The population soared from 1.6 million in 1801 to over 4.4 million by the century's end. The industrial boom brought prosperity, but it also introduced profound social challenges. Overcrowded housing, poor sanitation, and widespread disease became grim realities for the urban working class. Life in the rapidly growing industrial centers was harsh, and many families struggled to survive. For some, the promise of a new life lay across the seas. Over the 19th century, roughly 2 million Scots emigrated to North America, Australia, and other parts of the British Empire, seeking better opportunities and carrying their culture, skills, and traditions abroad. Despite these migrations, Scotland remained a hub of industrial power, intellectual achievement, and cultural vitality. By the dawn of the 20th century, Scotland had become an integral part of the United Kingdom, its cities and industries pivotal to the British Empire. The legacies of the Scottish Enlightenment and Industrial Revolution transformed the nation into a modern state, innovative, resilient, and culturally rich. Yet, the people of Scotland never forgot the struggles, sacrifices, and ingenuity that had forged their enduring identity, a spirit that would continue to shape the nation for generations to come. The 20th century brought both challenges and transformation for Scotland. Its industrial strength made it a vital part of the British Empire, yet the world wars exacted a heavy toll. In World War I, Scottish regiments suffered disproportionately high casualties, fighting on battlefields from Flanders to the Somme. The interwar years brought economic hardship as traditional industries like shipbuilding and coal mining declined, triggering unemployment and social unrest, including the violent Glasgow strike of 1919. World War II briefly revived industrial activity, but by the late 1940s, it was clear that Scotland's traditional industries were in long-term decline. The latter half of the century saw growing demands for political autonomy, fueled by a renewed sense of Scottish identity and frustration over economic and social challenges. These calls culminated in 1999 with the reconvening of the Scottish Parliament. After nearly 300 years, devolution granted Scotland control over key areas such as health, education, and justice, marking a new chapter in the nation's self-governance. Since then, debates over independence have continued, reflecting a historical consciousness shaped by centuries of struggle, resilience, and the enduring desire of the Scottish people to shape their own destiny. From ancient stone circles and Celtic tribes to Viking raids, dynastic struggles, and industrial revolutions, Scotland's history is a story of resilience, identity, and unwavering spirit. Each era, marked by conquest, rebellion, and enlightenment, has shaped the nation into what it is today, a land proud of its culture, its people, and its heritage. Though now part of the United Kingdom, Scotland continues to reflect on its past, its autonomy, and its future. The debates over independence, identity, and self-determination are not just political. They are a continuation of a centuries-old quest to shape its own destiny. Scotland's journey reminds us that history is not merely a series of dates and battles. It is the story of people, their struggles, and their triumphs. It is a legacy of resilience, creativity, and an enduring connection to the land. And as Scotland moves forward, its rich history will continue to inspire generations to come.